Welcome to Up Close and Empowered with host Sonna Johns. Over the next hour, you'll hear from Sonna and her guests on how you can become more empowered through life's most challenging situations. Sonna's journey through her own transformation has inspired her to awaken you to your divine power.
Hi, I'm Sonna Johns with Up Close and Empowered, where my intention is to inspire you in some way to awaken you to your true power. Thank you so much for listening today. So I want to begin by saying that I truly believe that everyone that comes on our path is for a reason. Everybody that comes into our life is for a reason. And there are countless times when people have appeared on my path and they've impacted me in some way. And maybe some of you have felt the same way. I mean, think about it for a minute. People that have supported you, loved you, encouraged you, maybe they were a messenger for some reason. Maybe they taught you a lesson. Maybe they brought something to your attention that you didn't really see. So I want to talk about someone today that's impacted my life, and I'm really so grateful to have him on the show today because I believe that everything happens for a reason, and the people that we meet in our life are for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And some people will stay and go, and then some people will remain, and that's something to be grateful for. So today, my guest is not only a well-respected healer and spiritual coach in the healing and spiritual community, but he's also someone that has had a great level of impact on my recent journey. And again, that's what I'm truly grateful for. And so I want to share some space together with him this afternoon. And when I think of Tyce, the word that comes to mind is wisdom. And I'm sure that you'll sense this today as you hear his personal story and how his journey took him through some twists and turns, not exactly in the direction that he had anticipated or he had hoped. But what I admire most about him is not only his depth or his wisdom, but his ability to articulate in a way that is so easy to understand. And I have said this to him from the beginning, and I believe that that's why he has such an impact on people and he's helped so many people, is because when he speaks, he's so articulate. And you can't help but tune in and listen and be completely engaged in what he's saying. He has this amazing resonance of compassion and love and knowledge that's really beyond. And I'm just going to leave it at that, because if I start pumping him up, he's going to get all upset with me because he doesn't like titles, because Tyce is a very humble individual. And he always says, don't put any names on me. So I'm like, okay. So the way that he delivers and shares his knowledge and gifts and insight are with the intentions of contributing to a better world, higher consciousness, and causing a ripple effect of more love and unity throughout the world. And I feel that we all could agree that this is what we really need at this time, for sure. And Tyce is very committed to this. He's very committed to empowering the collective and supporting those who embark upon their own healing journey, impacting the next generation's potential to transcend conditioned thinking and build systems that foster unity rather than division. So please welcome Tyce to the show.
Wow.
Thank you, Tyce.
Oh my goodness.
I tried to give you a nice intro there.
That was spectacular. I hope I can live up to everything that was stated, but thank you so much, man. As a dear friend, that means everything to me. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Tyce. And I struggled a little bit with it because I do get a little bit emotional because you have had such an impact, and I just have so much respect for you. And I know a lot of people in the community do as well. But what I wanted to do is give everybody an idea of your story, your background. And you even shared some recent things with me, lately that I wasn't even aware of. And I thought, wow, we really need to share some of this so that people can see the diverse background and some of the things that you've encountered on your journey, which led you to where you are today. So if you could take us back and have us feel what that was like for you, I would love for you to share that.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. So I guess we can begin by just letting the audience know that, I was born in Western Samoa, and adopted at a very young age by a beautiful Caucasian family. And I am the youngest of three other siblings. We all come from different nationalities and backgrounds. And our beautiful family is Caucasian. And I grew up in a little small town called Lehigh, Utah. Really tight-knit community. Everyone kind of knew everybody. And at a very young age, I didn't know it at the time, but I kind of could see reality a little bit different than those around us. And wanting to fit in, I did not want to stand out. So at a very young age, I suppressed a lot of these gifts that I thought were, something different about me. I wasn't quite sure about that. And, through the course of my life, I used some of the talents and gifts that I had to just open up myself, to push myself to the limits, really wanting to find out what I wanted to do in life. And as a young lad, I would watch professional football with my father and my brothers, and that's just what I wanted to become. So at a very young age, very talented, very gifted in athletics. That was my goal. I wanted to become a professional football player. Fast forward a little bit in high school, everybody who knew me knew that that was a goal of mine. They knew that, hey, this kid's got something, and even when I went to go talk with a career coach, they knew what I wanted to do and they believed in me. And they said, hypothetically, Tyce, if you could be anything in this world, what would it be outside of football? And I couldn't answer it. I just couldn't. That was it. And just like the universe does, certain circumstances happened. And me and my girlfriend at the time, we had a high school pregnancy. And I was a sophomore, 16 years of age. And that just kind of flip-flopped our lives completely. At the time, I thought my life was coming to an end. The type of scrutiny, everything that kind of comes with that, you could amplify that, and it was a very dark period of time. And, me and my girlfriend at the time, we decided to make one of the most difficult decisions and give this child an opportunity for life, for adoption. And so we placed this beautiful soul into the hands and arms of a family who we selected. And up until that point, Sonna, I had believed that since I was adopted at a young age, that, my birth family just didn't like me. They didn't want me. They abandoned me. They didn't care about me. And that was hard. That was difficult. And boy, when this came full circle, I couldn't have been wrong. I couldn't have been more further from thinking about what really is taking place here, which is you give someone the opportunity of life. And that was hard because at age 15, 16 years old, we went through this kind of very deep traumatic time, and our families wanted us to separate and all of these type of things. But, Candace and I, who is my wife now, coming upon 19 years of marriage, we loved each other, and I found out, that through this big trial and tribulation, that the universe and God has a different plan for me, and it wasn't football.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said that your family really had a difficult time with this. And I remember you telling me, and Candace also telling me that, you guys lost a lot of friends. And tell us a little bit about how that felt and what happened.
It was tough. Growing up, being an athlete that I was, both Candace and I were very popular in the community. People kind of had us as, captain of the football team. She was on the drill team. So it's kind of that kind of stigma. And then when you go through an experience like that at a young age, kids are ruthless. They are ruthless, so when they get this type of information, nobody really knows how to act. And so the gossip circles started, and eventually we lost all of our friends, especially Candace, and that was extremely difficult because, you have in mind where you think that you're going, where your life is going to go forth. And then all of a sudden something like this happens, and you learn very quickly, who is actually in your corner and who's not. And so Candace and I had to learn very quickly, It's not about fighting with each other, because we had our own challenges. We were young, trying to figure out life, and we went through this event together. So we learned, not to fight with each other, but to fight for each other. And that was some of the most challenging years of my life. That's really where I entered into the dark night of the soul. And a lot of limited beliefs had surfaced up for me, about abandonment, not feeling good enough, and I really had to kind of face that, and so.
Right. Because you had the abandonment not only from what had happened in high school, but also just being adopted. And if you could talk about that for a minute, I do know that there are many listening that have been adopted. And if you could just shed some light on that for people that, obviously haven't been adopted, how that feels. And, now that you had this abandonment later, it kind
Yeah.
of reflected the abandonment from being adopted, I would think.
Oh, 100%. When I was young, I'll never forget, I was in second grade, and it was when you could bring the parent to school day. And I had my parents there, and, I'm a young Samoan brown kid in school, and my parents are Caucasian. And I remember a kid in class asked me, he said, "Hey, where's your parents at?" And I pointed to the back of the class, and he's like, "Those aren't your parents, they're white. You're brown." And at a young age, I didn't really kind of put it together until then. So I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, and even though my parents shared with me the adoption story, it just didn't really resonate until I could distinctly see the different color of skin. I remember having vivid dreams about like unzipping my brown skin, and then underneath was white. And so this kind of gives you a bit of psychology about, how I was thinking at a young child, where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm completely different. And it hurts. And so you kind of carry this with you, where it's like, you just don't feel good enough at all, and it predicates your future moves, where it kind of drives you into perfection, where it's like, since I didn't feel good enough, I've got one or two things I can do. Either I can just sit in that type of energy, or I can prove people wrong. And I kind of took the latter of that. And I said, you know what, I'm going to be the best at whatever I do, and I'm going to go this route with it. And it wasn't up until, like I said, we had a teenage pregnancy, and we were actually there, giving this child life, where I witnessed the other side of that. I witnessed the other side of just, oh my gosh, we have so much love and compassion, and just the sacrifice of witnessing that I am not old enough, nor do I have the responsibilities or tools to be able to provide this beautiful soul life, an opportunity for success. And that type of sacrifice was very daunting. And yet at the same time, it reshaped a limited belief system within me that, I wasn't good enough, to the point of actually, I am where I am today based out of love. And that was kind of like a superpower that unlocked for me,
Right.
Yeah.
What happened after that, Tyce? When this all happened with your family, is there anything else that you want to share that was a turning point when you were at the age of 15 or right around that time frame?
Yeah. So living in a tight-knit community, absolutely love my parents. As a parent now, you do the best that you can, given the tools that you're given. And they were scared. My parents were scared that I might fall into even deeper, darker places. And so they actually sent me to a boys' ranch. Now, what a boys' ranch is that you have no communication to the outside world. You're literally in a facility 24/7. And typically, when you're in this type of establishment, you're there for about 4 to 6 months. And so after we had just gone through this process of giving our child life, I was thrown in this boys' ranch. No communication with my girlfriend, with my friend, or anything. It was, it really hurt. It was a betrayal of trust. It was, what did I do? And up to this point, Sonna, like I was a great kid. Like I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't go out and do all these things. I just had this experience with my girlfriend. And here at the boys' ranch, I had one or two things to do. It was either I'm going to be in here for a long period of time. I need to figure out how the hell I can get out of here as quickly as possible. I chose the latter. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, because this is where I allowed my spiritual gifts to really manifest themselves. And I didn't really do it you always hear about spiritual gifts being used in a positive manner. I kind of used them in a manipulative manner, which I did everything in my power to get out of this place as quickly as possible. I talked with the clinicians, I talked with whoever, and I shared with them what they needed to hear, not necessarily what was going on, but I wanted to get out. And I'll never forget, there was a time where I was sitting in my bunk bed, and I was just kind of looking up. And I had something that I don't really share with all that much, but I had a very mystical experience where, to kind of get right into it, I had one of my guardians come to me, and it's looks just like me now, tatted up, big guy, and it scared me. And he didn't say anything to me, and it was just an instant knowing. It was just an instant understanding, and what the message was, the universe and God has a different plan for you. And it's important for you to listen to the whispers being sent to your heart.
Right.
And that point changed everything for me.
Yeah, I can feel it. I can totally feel that. And I can only imagine how difficult it was to be in that facility at such a young age, wondering what in the heck you're doing there. But yet at the same time, you got one of the biggest messages of your life.
Yeah. And I love, it's one of these things where it's like, I believe that everything happens for a reason, and I believe that some of those reasons are presented to us in circumstances that are not pleasant. But it's in those circumstances where we kind of break down the fabric of who we think we are and what we think we should do, to be open enough to receive messages of really what we're supposed to do, what our kind of purpose is here in life. So.
Right. And as we know, some of us listen, some of us don't. Sometimes the signs are right in front of us and we still don't listen. But when we're ready, I guess we're ready to listen. It's a timing thing. But it seemed like it was really significant, and that actually let you know that you weren't going to play football, and maybe your life was not going to go how you had thought it was going to go. So you had to probably regroup. And at 15, I mean, you're still so young. I mean, to understand all that.
Well, to give you a glimpse of how young I was, and my thinking was, I thought to myself, okay, if I'm not going to make professional football, I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to play music. I'm going to be in a band. We're going to be famous. And really what this all kind of came down to was, the reason why I wanted to play professional football wasn't necessarily for the money. The reason why I wanted to be a rock star wasn't for the fame. It was so I can have an opportunity to really help those who are less fortunate, to help foster in a bigger message that, we're all in this together. We can create kind of sounds cliche, but we can create a better world than where it is today.
Right.
And that was kind of the old driving force. But my logical thinking had, football, rock star, where spirit's like, no, that's not it, Tyce, but we'll see how this goes.
Right. They had a different, as you say, script in mind for you,
absolutely,
which led you where you are today. But take us through in between that, like fast forward to now, but give us a little bit of the in between, your corporate job, some of the things that you've been involved in. Just briefly talk about some of the organizations and the ways that you've given back. And then we'll kind of dive into a little bit more of the healing journey.
Yeah, for sure. So right after high school, kind of fast forward a little bit, I landed a job. So Candace and I got married. Let's start there. We got married a couple years after high school, and I landed a job at a call center. Now, prior to this, Sonna, I worked hard labor. I had no idea that you could get paid talking on the phone. So that kind of puts it in a frame like this. I was like, okay, well, if I can get paid talking on the phone, let's push it let's see how far we can go. So that call center job, I ended up, from tier 1 to a VP of operations to an executive.
Wow. Wow.
And you're talking
Not
about
surprising.
Oh, thank you. You're talking about a kid who had a GED, but I had a heart, I had passion, I had desire. It's kind of one of those things, get out of my way. We'll get this going. And so I'll never forget, I was very happy with where I was, professionally, and I was super fit. I think I was chasing Dwayne Johnson, the Rock, at this time, where it's like, I'm going to catch him. I'm going to be a stunt devil. I'm going to catch
Yeah.
him
And don't people say that you look like him? Because
all the
obviously
time.
there's a lot of listeners and not everybody has seen the promo on you, but you do resemble him a lot. And people say that.
Well, see, and the funny thing about it is everyone always asks me, they're like, why are you always wearing a hat or something? It's like, because I get that so much. Like, I'm
Yes.
bald
Yeah.
as well. And it's like, hey, you know who you look like? I'm like, yeah, tell me. So once I found out, the universe had a different script for me, everything seemed to be going great.
Mhm.
I was diagnosed with plantar fasciitis, where it's like excruciating pain in the feet, didn't know what to do. So I went to go see some specialists, and they said, Tyce, you got to stay off your feet for a couple of years, be in a wheelchair, or go through a major surgery. And I was like, there's got to be a different way. This just doesn't seem right.
Mhm.
And so that's what really started leading me into my path today, which is the holistic route. So it just so happened that around that time I was part of a community called the Tribe of Kings. It was a young men's group that was dedicated to help bring awareness around men's suicide, really kind of providing any type of boy or man some tools to be successful, right?
Mhm.
And I was one of the speakers there, and I'll never forget, I got super ill at one of our speaking events, and I had to deliver an important message. It just so happened that there was an indigenous healer in the crowd, and he saw me. Now, I heard about who he was, but I was kind of like, who's this woo-woo guy? That was my initial thinking, but I was
Mhm.
so desperate, Sonna, that I went up to him and I said, hey, man, can you help me? And he's like, absolutely. So he took me kind of in a little private room, and he did some energy work on me. And
Mhm.
within a matter of 10 minutes, my whole life just flipped again. And I had
Wow.
remembered everything that I had suppressed as a child. And I just had this
Ah.
instant knowing again. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been playing small. I need to be
Ooh.
authentic of who I am. And so I went out on stage, delivered a great message. And that's what changed it for me, because his wife at the time was into reflexology and foot zone therapy.
Mhm.
So, long story short, I went to go see her, and she had helped me with plantar fasciitis within the first session. I didn't have to get
Wow.
surgery, didn't have to get on a wheelchair. So then I'm talking to Candace. I'm like, hey, we're getting into this energy stuff. She grew up indigenous. So she's like, all right, this is awesome. So that's where it began for us. We started
Wow.
with learning and got certified. And now, fast forward again, it's what I do for fun. I absolutely love working with individuals. I love working with coaches. I love to share messages to help people along the healing journey. And it's just been a really fun ride. So
And you work with what? With Candace too, right? You guys have been working together, doing healing with people together as a team.
absolutely. So when we were in Utah, we created a company called Healing Ohana Roots, and we were busy during the pandemic when
Yes.
essential places were open. We considered ourselves essential. So yeah, our company, our business blew up. It was so beautiful, like being able to heal with my wife,
Mhm.
being able to help those who are seeking something more than where they're at, and just sharing space with them. I mean, that's what really, where my passion really came in. And then I knew from the universe, okay, I hear the script. This is the path. This is how I can get back to help.
Right. Right.
So
And you also do, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later as well, but you do the frequency attunement, you do Reiki, you have your own ways of healing energetically, but you also work as a spiritual coach. And I just want everyone to know a little bit about what you are focusing on now primarily. Like, what do you really love doing, and how are you helping the collective?
absolutely, great question. I love coaching. I love the one-on-one interaction. I also love to work with a group of individuals, kind of more of an intimate setting. And so what I'm working on right now is creating a 6-week to a 12-week program for those coaches who are looking to kind of dive deep, or those who are interested in, like,
Mhm.
hey, what is this coaching all about? It's not immune to anybody. And to really kind of help foster in individuals' gifts, because there's so many different energy frequency modalities that it's not necessarily that individuals need to do what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Let's work on you. Let's find out what you're passionate about. And more often than not, there's some modality that could help you. And so the program is really kind of geared to help bring up other people's gifts that they might not see for themselves.
Right. So we're going to take a break in a minute here, but after the break, what I want to talk about, Tyce, I want to talk about, what would someone start with to get on the healing journey? If, where do they begin? Where do they start? What do they do? Do they need someone to work with? And how can they dive into the self-discovery that we talk about, diving deep? We always use that term, diving deep. It's really about diving deep into who we are, our true self-discovery. So after the break, I want to kind of get into that and then talk about what specific tools and things that they can do if they are, if they do want to get on the path. So I think we're going to take a break right now. Are we good? I think I'll be back right after this break with Up Close and Empowered. We'll be back with Tyce and we'll get a little bit more in depth with the healing journey and some of the obstacles that people are facing today and working through that. So we'll be back right after this.
Welcome back to Up Close and Empowered with Sonna Johns. Have a question for Sonna or guests? Join us on the show at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. Now back to the show.
Hi, welcome back to the show. Sonna Johns on Up Close and Empowered. We're talking to Tyce Chamberlain and we're talking about the healing journey. So Tyce, what advice do you have for someone just beginning their journey and seeking some type of a starting point?
I think it's important for us to realize that there's an infinite ways that you can start this journey. There's not like a scripted part that you need to follow or anything of that nature. But if you feel drawn to this, and you feel like you need a little bit of assistance, I think it would be very wise for you to seek out like a practitioner. And I always share this with whoever's asking me. It's like, you don't need to work with myself. You could go out there and look and see who resonates with you and even do like a clarity call with them. Now, if this is someone who, perhaps you don't want to take that first step, that's completely fine as well. What I share with anyone starting this journey and what I continue to do myself is just to really create a safe space, for you to kind of gather yourself a little bit. And if you're kind of new to meditation, that's okay, and really just kind of allow yourself to just focus on your breath just a little bit. You can close your eyes if it's more comfortable for you, and then just kind of allow yourself to just relax, because a lot of times we get so stemmed out with what's going on in today's world that we never really give ourselves permission to take that space and to relax a little bit. And then when you're in this space, ask any question that you want. Like for me, it's always something along the lines of, show unto me what is holding me back from the better version of who I can be. And then just wait and just listen. And it's like, Tyce, I'm not hearing anything. Nothing's coming through. And it's like, that's okay. Just continue to breathe a little bit and listen. And then sooner or later, you will hear a message. And here's the tricky part, is that message, more often than not, is something that you don't want to hear, but something you need to hear. And so that kind of begins the process right there, that anyone can do it anytime, so.
Right. So that leads me to my next question. So tell me what most of the obstacles are that you see. What are some of the obstacles that people are facing, or maybe they're in denial about it as well? What are you seeing, being that you work with people all the time?
I think it's the expectation of who we think we are. And what I mean by that is we have an idea of who we think we are. That idea comes from conditioning of who we've been told we are at birth, what we've been told to believe in. That could go to politics, religion, really anything of that nature. And I think the most important thing of it is that when you start realizing that your whole picture of who you think you are is just a cataclysm of potentially adopted beliefs, I mean, that kind of like asks the bigger question of like, well, then who am I without all of this kind of conditioning?
Right.
And so if you can get to that point where you become just aware enough to be like, holy cow, like why do I believe this? Why do I believe that I shouldn't travel outside of Lehigh, Utah? Why do it, like, and it could be like the reasons being could be your parents are scared to move. And so you inherited that gift and it's like, I've got to stay here. It could be as simple as that. That small belief system has predicated your present and future moves. And so, yeah.
So how does one begin to unravel those conditioned beliefs? Because we know that this is a big obstacle in general today. Our mindset, our conditioned responses, things that we've learned and we've took on as a child. How do we begin? Because it's a process. It's peeling back the layers of an onion, more or less, right? How does one begin to see what those conditioned beliefs are and step out of the denial and face it? And then how do they work through it? I know it's a loaded question, but just do the best you can to kind of give people an idea, because I know there are so many people that are stuck in certain mindsets, and many of them aren't even consciously aware that they have these conditioned responses.
It's such a beautiful question because it's a very deep question that I'd love to answer. It's a matter of really understanding that every single one of us are not immune to trauma. Every single one of us have gone through something in our life, whether or not you witnessed that or you experienced it, that kind of reshaped our belief systems of who we are. And so what happens when we experience something with trauma is that you trap thoughts and feelings, the emotions that you feel and the thoughts that you were thinking during that experience, and you kind of freeze that into like a time capsule. I call this a wounded timeline. And so this wounded timeline sits in your awareness, but it becomes unconscious because it's just something that we keep there to guard our hearts from never wanting to feel hurt or experience that ever again. So especially with men and just with everyone, we suppress these emotions, we suppress these type of thinking, and we're like, we'll just muscle through this, it's okay. But the challenge that exists is that this type of energy stays within our field 24/7, 365 days out of the year. And so when you ask the question, Tyce, how do we become aware of this? It's a great question because I coin a saying that you've got to really feel it to heal it. You have this energy that is dormant within you, that you've frozen up in time, that you don't want to experience anymore. And so it's going to be important for you somehow to become aware of that. And one of the practical ways that have helped myself and others become aware of these unconscious patterns, because we don't know that they're limited beliefs, is to take a look and maybe perhaps write down what are some of the big belief systems that you think about yourself. And as you write down a list of things, look at that and have kind of the courage and fortitude to take the opposition or the polarity part of why you don't feel like you're enough, and then just go down the line of like, well, it's because, no one ever saw me. Well, just keep on going down with that. And then why do you want to feel like you're enough? Really ask yourself the opposite part of the belief system that you have to kind of see the dualistic nature of what presents itself. And it begins to allow you to think differently. Because we don't realize that we recycle the same thoughts every single day. And often we don't really cultivate or create a world where we can look at things differently. And so when you take something like that and you start looking at it, that's where the healing can start to begin at a kind of surface level, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, I feel this way because of this reason. Why do you feel that way? Because ultimately what happens is that from age 0 to 7, our mind is so conditioned a certain way that we just think that that's just how it is. And we don't realize that the power is actually within us. The power is actually that we have the ability to pick up the author pen and rewrite the story if we so choose to do so. So it's just giving yourself permission to do that.
I agree. And one of the things that I did when I was going through this process is this, and I still do it, and I do it with when I coach myself, is this really true? This conditioned response, is this okay? All right, this is what I was told. This is what people want me to believe, but is this really true?
Yes.
And if you really stop and ask yourself that, you realize like, no, it's not true. That's a good way to go through it too. Don't you feel?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's important for us to fact check everything. Does this
Right.
is this really true, or is these kind of thoughts that I just believe? And then why do you believe that? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know.
Right, right. And
So
I love how you always say that healing is awareness.
yes.
Healing is the awareness, just the awareness
Mhm.
of something is healing it.
That's it.
Even just speaking of it to someone, sharing, feeling through the emotions of it, that's the awareness which actually starts the healing process.
Absolutely. So as we talk about, you got to feel it to heal it. It's one of these things where if you've experienced trauma before, then you've experienced rage, anger, all these shameful feelings like hate. And so the best way that we can neutralize this is with love, joy, compassion. Whereas like trauma kind of magnetizes us into the past,
Mhm,
love
mhm.
magnetizes us into the present, where we can rewrite a story again. And so healing isn't necessarily just, oh, some woo-woo thing. Healing is actually just becoming aware of something that's holding you back, something
Right,
that has encapsulated you into a prison, and you glued that up with fear. And
right.
so it's becoming aware of the prison you created for yourself, and gaining back that awareness is power. And then what you
Yeah.
use with that power is you fill that up with love, compassion, awareness. You're more present. And so therefore it's like more people can see you,
Mhm.
because you can see yourself.
Because don't you think people have a misconception of what healing is? And
Yes.
it's really just about the awareness. And then, like you said, we get caught up in the perfection of things, and that's because we don't really understand, or understand, as you like to say. We're not really understanding it fully. So then we just get into this perfection, or overdoing, and getting caught up in the cycle of life,
Yep.
just to you know, stay away from what we don't think we want to know, but what we really need to know. So help me with that, Tyce. You're really good with words. Help me to describe what I'm trying to say so that people can understand, because there are so many people that, and listen, I've done it too, where you've admitted it to me, that you got it caught up in just go, 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 and being perfect and overachieving and staying busy. But we all know we also need to listen to our bodies and listen to our hearts, and
Yeah.
take that time out for ourselves. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important for us to realize that, we've got this idea in our minds that we need to be perfect. And it's like, okay, I can understand that because I've been that way too. I want to be perfect at everything I do. The challenge with that is that when you accomplish something that you've been striving for so long, you know, when it actually hits, for me and for the people who I coach, you don't feel anything. It's a kind of like this, like you've achieved something that you've strived for perfection in whatever it is, but it's kind of empty inside. And so it's like,
Mhm,
a certain individuals who I work with, they're like, why do I feel this? I'm so successful. I have so much money. I have so much amazing
mhm,
relationships, but I feel so empty inside. What is this?
mhm,
It's because like perfection, we shouldn't be striving for perfection. We should be striving for excellence, or striving for the greatness, the uniqueness of
mhm,
authenticity, of allowing you to just be the best version of who you can be. Because when I think about perfection, I think about like I'm trying to mirror someone else who I admire, and I'm trying to be exactly like them. You cannot do that. Out of 8 billion
right.
people, all very unique. And so instead of striving for something like that, it's like it'd be better suited for us to strive to be authentic, and to strive for that greatness, to open that up within ourselves. Because as you go along the journey, what you'll find is that if you're working on yourself, and you go back to not just hearing someone talk to you, but actually listening to them to understand, that is
Mhm,
huge. Because we live in a society where it's like people talk to us all the time, and it's like, yeah, 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 but we're not really listening to understand. We're just kind of listening to get to the next conversation. We're just, kind of trying to advance. But the reason I bring that up is because when we slow down to speed up, what happens is that we start listening to our heart. we start listening to the messages that are being sent to our heart. And that could be from a higher intelligence, it could be from God, that could be from the universe, it could be from a better version of yourself, but if you're so worried and trying to hit perfection all the time, instead of just focusing on embodying and discovering the greatness within yourself, you're not going to hear those whispers that are being sent to your heart.
Right.
I think that's important. I think that's really important for us to do that, because when you listen to your heart, this is where the fulfillment comes in. This is what we're striving for. This is actually what we want as like a treat, a gift, is actually unlocking the better version of yourself if you decide to do the work within.
Right. And unlocking the better version of yourself brings more beautiful things into your life, more miracles, more opportunities, more possibilities, more heart-centered relationships. But it all starts within, and then everything else falls.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's like logically, and you and I have talked about this, logically, if you have all the knowledge in the world, that's fantastic. You could get places, you could do certain things, but logic has a cap to it. Whereas if you were to listen to your heart, if you were to listen to the guidance that is there, you're tapping into wisdom. Because if you follow your heart, you're going to go through experiences, and experiences are the best teachers in life, because it's what we learn from that. It's what we pull from that. It's our experience of like, oh my gosh, this happened to me, for me to become aware of this that was holding me back. And that wisdom is so priceless. It's so fulfilling. That's really what we're striving for, honestly, I believe.
Right.
Is striving to really feel that. And when you fill your cup with that, it's like, get out of here. Get out of here. Like,
wisdom is power. I always say it. Wisdom is power.
Wisdom is power, and wisdom is just priceless, because you'll feel like $1,000,000. And what's interesting is more opportunities, more doors will open that you could not even logically think about, because you're actually trusting something that's bigger than you.
Right. Exactly. 100%. Yes. And don't you feel that forgiveness is a very large part of the healing process, and really, coming to that place of self-compassion and compassion for others? So when I talk about forgiveness, not just forgiveness with others that have hurt us, but forgiveness within ourselves, because I'm sure you have people that you've worked with, and I have too, and I have close friends, and it's so hard as we go through this journey, and we learn these life lessons. We look back and we're so hard on ourselves, and we're like, well, I knew that, I didn't listen to my intuition, and we're beating ourselves up. But we need to find a way to self-forgive, and then find a way to forgive whoever has hurt us. And once we do that, what happens?
That's it. And you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it, because what I learned at a very young age was that if I blame somebody, I give them my power.
Yes.
And whether or not it's right or wrong or whatever, if I blame somebody, then they basically own that part of me.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I have to interject because I want everybody to hear that. So when we want to blame somebody, or we want to look at somebody else and not look at ourselves, we are giving away our power, and nobody likes to give away their power. So thank you for saying that, Tyce.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about like, there's been plenty of people and circumstances that I struggled with forgiveness, obviously. And when I continued to blame other people, I witnessed that if I continue to blame other people, I continuously stayed in a prison in their mind, where I just kept on thinking about it all the time. I kept on thinking about it, and I just kept putting my body in a state of fight or flight, where, I wasn't really grounded here and now. And so I had to learn, and I think this is important, is you have to learn a way to be able to forgive yourself first, no matter what the circumstance is. Get your power back, and then you'll learn how to forgive another. And there's much wisdom in this practice. It is not weakness. As I work with a lot of men, they're like, hey, I don't want to surrender. I don't want to give my power. It's like, no, what you don't recognize is that this individual has your power right now. You gain that back. And so this is where the warrior comes out, where you have to learn how to forgive thyself. We have to learn how to accept thyself, to feel worthy enough of the beautiful thing called self-love.
Right. And I know on one of your recent lives, which by the way, everybody, Tyce has a Instagram handle, which is, and he'll tell you how to reach him in a few minutes here, but he has a great Instagram handle, which has so many reels of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And one of your recent lives that you did, I really liked, and you just reminded me of it, is when we ruminate with these things, excuse me, in our heads, and it's taking up space, things that we cannot control, decisions we may have made, we can't allow it to take space up in our minds. We can't control it anyway, so it needs to be out of our minds. But you said it a little bit better than that. So can you explain that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to an awareness again, where it's if things are literally out of your control and there is nothing you can do, then it deserves freedom in your mind as well.
Mhm.
And I kind of let the viewers sit in that a little bit,
Mhm.
because often, myself included, I try to control everything. We all do.
Mhm.
And we often find out that, hey, you can't control that, but we sit in a state of anxiety within the mind because we're trying to figure out how we can control that. And therein lies the lesson for us to learn how to let go. Let go. And I always say, let love let go, and just start letting that flow, because you're going to start feeling better about yourself. And you're going to start to recognize that, you know what, if I can't control this, it deserves freedom from my mind. And what happens is that you are experiencing something that we all want, which is peace.
Mhm.
Peace, knowing that, okay, let love let go.
And I give it up to God a lot, the universe, God,
Exactly.
source, whatever. I just say, this is out of my control. Please take it with,
Yep.
how you will. And I just trust. And, it's getting it out, whatever way you can get it out of your head, right? Because people want to ruminate, they get stuck, and it's just the looping thoughts over and over and over. And as you know, that limits us.
Mhm. I think what
So,
helped was there's Albert Einstein quote that he's like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different outcome.
mhm.
So I translated that to, oh my gosh, thoughts. If I think the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome, but I can't
Right.
control it, then I'm kind of being insane right now.
Right, right. So Tyce, I want you to let everybody know where they can get in touch with you briefly. And then what I was hoping to do, and I think we have a few minutes left, and I hope that everybody will stay on for just a few more minutes, because we had talked about maybe doing a frequency attunement, just so that we could
Oh
all
yeah,
just, be in the energy of, the beautiful energy that you could expose us to,
absolutely.
our
What a treat.
listeners, because I think that they will be able to benefit from that. But really quickly, how can they get a hold of you, in what ways besides Instagram and your handle?
Honestly, it's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Mhm.
So I poured all of my attention into Instagram, TYCE 1111, which is a significant date. We'll get into that another time. I know you understand that. But yeah, that's the best way you can get a hold of me. If you're interested into coaching services and these type of things, then it's at www.healingohanaroots.com. And just kind of paying it forward, we have another company called High Vibe and Deep Diving, which is an apparel brand about showcasing your authentic self. So
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
that's great. You and Candace are doing that. You've been working on that for a while, and that's
4 minutes.
some really cool apparel.
Yep.
Sure. Okay, so we have a few minutes. What do we need to do, Tice, so that we can experience this attunement?
You know what? I'm super excited about this. This is stuff that I've done on my lives before. So thank you for this opportunity, first and foremost. It's very simple. Wherever you are, wherever you're tuning into, just allow yourself. If you're
And we have
driving,
3 minutes,
okay,
just so you know, 3 minutes.
just allow yourself to just kind of slow down a little bit. Maybe close your eyes, and just allow kind of everything that we've talked about here. Just kind of marinate in it, and just kind of start with your breathing. Breathe slow and deep within your nose, and hold it there for a moment, and then slowly breathe out your mouth. And continue to just focus on your breath. Focus on that sensation, what that means. Let everything go. Let the thoughts just flow, just like clouds passing in the sky. And just feel that beautiful sun just kind of hit you. Just allow yourself to just kind of unwind, slowly breathing, slowly focusing on just your breath and just my voice.
2 minutes.
And as you're in this space, just allow yourself to just be. Allow yourself to just be here in this moment. Not really thinking about anything else, just being guided by my voice, guided by perhaps something that is here in stillness for you. Whereas stillness speaks to our hearts, it also resonates within our soul. And as we do this kind of attunement, just working with different frequencies and energy, it's really just to allow you permission to just find that better version of yourself, to allow yourself to feel worthy of that version, and just continue to just breathe.
1 minute.
As you work on this connection, this is something that you can have as your always, whenever you might feel stressful, whenever it feels like the world is falling apart. You can now always find yourself here and just breathe. This is the present for you, from me.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Sonna, for the
Thank
opportunity.
you, Tyce. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your thoughts, your insight, your wisdom. We appreciate you. Obviously, we could have gotten into so much more. There's so much to cover and we can go really deep, but this was just scratching the surface today. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Join me next week. I have a surprise guest, a little bit of a different type of direction next week. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for being here today on Up Close and Empowered, and have a beautiful day.
Much love.